turn off your camera, grab a chair leg, have a go at it.
Wow.
You might find your head while you're up there.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 454 of the Dead Robot Society. Terry Mixon here. Joining me, Paul E. Cooley. How you doing, man?
What's up?
Apparently you're drinking, what's that, Budweiser?
Are you kidding? No, never.
Isn't that a Budweiser commercial thing with the WhatsApp
I
thing?
have no idea what you're talking about. I just like to say it.
You just repeat things that you hear without knowing the context in which they originated?
Absolutely, just like politicians.
Oh, well, I guess that's all right then. What are you up to, man?
Well, I wrote today and about 1,700 words or so, so I'm kind of back on the horse.
Whoop, whoop. You're doing.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. What are you doing to the horse?
Shut up.
Oh.
I guess I'm about 2,500 away from having 30,000 words in this book. So, but I don't know that it's even a third done yet, or even a fourth. We'll see.
Which book is this that you're writing on?
Derelict Destruction.
Okay.
I don't even know if it's the last book, although I figured out the other day a way I can cheat a little bit and make another book out of it.
It's not cheating if you're trying.
I will be so eviscerated by my readers if I do what I thought about the other day.
Well, why should this book be any different than every other one you've done?
Yeah, I know. I put on Twitter or Facebook today that I've been. This is happening every day now. I get a new email or a comment asking when the Black is coming back, when I'm writing the next Black book. And most of these folks discovered it through Derelict, is what I can figure out because of the timing. So I found that very interesting. So people who read Derelict are actually going back and checking out the Black. And
well, you know what they're going to start doing now, don't you? They're going to start posting YouTube links to your Facebook page to AC/DC. Back in Black.
I hit the sack. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I've got Black. I can't even talk. Never mind. Forget that. I was not doing.
There's a reason I didn't actually try to sing that song.
Oh, and
besides the fact that I am not dressed up in a schoolgirl outfit.
I am not dressed up in a schoolgirl outfit either.
Have you ever seen the AC/DC lead singer?
Oh, he's not wearing a schoolgirl outfit. That's
It sure looks like one.
No, that's the old school public school outfit the kids wore in England and Australia.
I guess I didn't pay close enough attention. I thought it was actually a girl's outfit as opposed to a boy's.
Those are knickers. Knickers.
Well, I am still stuck on, I always thought knickers was a lady thing. Okay.
So it's always it's also pants, short pants.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, obviously, it's been a while since I've seen AC/DC and I've never seen them live. So, yeah. I've
seen them live. They were a good show. Of course, that was back in 1990, maybe 89, 90, somewhere in there. A long time ago. So I have no idea if they're even capable of carrying a tune anymore, although I think they're still
They have minions that can carry the tunes for them.
I think they're on the 401k tour right now, or were the last couple of years. So just like most of the rock acts out there.
I hear they're going to go ahead and start hitting, the Medicare areas, start singing to people in nursing homes and stuff.
You can do better, Terry. I'm disappointed. You can do better.
I could do better.
You can do better. So I somehow managed to get out of my head and actually write, and felt pretty good. There's some other stuff that I wrote about 2,000 words worth that, and I'm not talking about the poet, that I basically tossed in the bin and in my dead letter file about Callie Moore's childhood and on Mars. And I was like, wait a minute, I want to write this story now. So that was kind of a happy accident. It won't be, I don't think it'll make it into destruction, because I don't think it's I don't think it needs to be there, but I wrote it and I found myself wanting to really dig into it. So there may be a short story coming to the patrons in a relatively near future. We'll see. But I'm just glad to kind of be back on the horse. It's always difficult. Well, it's not always difficult, but it's been difficult with the change in the meds. I'm still kind of getting my ship together. So, but we're moving. Still waiting for Audible, you fuckers, to make Derelict Tomb available. It's been headed to retail for like 5 days now, whatever the hell that means.
I'm in the same boat. Paying the price is sitting in that same specific spot.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So we're both in the same hell. Is that what you're telling me?
That's right. We're going to have a DRS release party this week. Whoop, whoop.
Let's
whoop,
hope so.
Whoop.
I just, it's so frustrating. It's like, I need this to be out. I need the sales. I have bills to pay. Fuckers. And every new audiobook means more audiobook sales. For even all the old titles. I mean, the Black is still selling. It's been what, 2.5 years, something like that, and it's still rocking along. So, with any luck, Derelict will do the same thing, but we'll see.
Well, once you're all done with Derelict, you'll just have to go back and write the next series of Black novels.
There will not be another series of Black novels. There are 2 left, maximum. Maximum.
Oh, come on. You can finish destroying the world one city at a time.
No, there's no point.
Oh, there's always a point.
No, there's no point with that. Besides, I think the way Derelict ends, at least in my head, there's definitely another series dealing with the aftermath of Derelict. Yeah. I don't think you've read Tomb, have you?
I have not.
Okay. There's something in Tomb that at the end of Tomb that we find out this is just kind of like, oh fuck. And I might use that to close out this series, and then there will be a new series based on dealing with what happens in Destruction. So we'll see how that works, but you can't imagine the Soul Federation kicking back and saying, well, that was interesting, and not doing anything about it. So
we'll just let that one pass.
Yeah, we'll just let that one go by. I don't think that's going to work. But we'll see. We'll see how it works. I'm kind of excited. I just need to get my Marines the hell through, and then focus on what's going on outside the ship while they're making their way through the Derelict. So, but it's kind of exciting, and things are moving, and I'm not nearly as depressed. So I guess that's a good thing.
That is a good thing, because I like it when I see Paul, being a cheerful sort of fellow, as cheerful as you ever get.
As cheerful as I ever get. What are you saying, man? What are you saying? Am I always morose on this show?
Bah,
I'm trying to
humbug.
say morose?
Bah, humbug.
That's curmudgeon. That's completely different. And I only do that because I want to make you feel at home.
Oh, well, okay. As long as, it's just for my sake.
It is just for your sake. What the hell's up with you, man?
I've been working on the secret project and still plugging away. I've got about 4 more chapters that I'm still looking at, doing things. And after that, I think that the whole storyline that I'm working on is just going to open up and start flowing along. So I'm very excited about that.
Is that the one you're working on with Nathan Lowell?
That Nathan Lowell says not. Somebody else had conjectured that might be the case, but Nathan Lowell said, no, it's a different secret project. So apparently he's listening.
He's listening? No,
Apparently
he doesn't listen. He lurks. There's a big difference.
Does he play the Jaws theme when he lurks by?
I don't know. That's kind of scary, actually.
Dun, dun.
What is wrong with you?
Dun, 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 dun.
If you go back and watch Star Wars, and when they're bringing in the princess's ship into the Star Destroyer, I bet that would go great with that theme. If you cut off all the other music and just had that, as they're sucking the ship in, I think that'd be awesome.
I'm
Get on
sure
that, David Wood.
I'm sure someone on the internet has already made that happen somewhere.
I'm sure you're right. It's like Rule 34 could now be applied to everything on the internet, just not just sex, but everything.
Yep.
So that's pretty much the way
let's see.
goes.
Other than that, I've got Paying the Prices audiobook that's about to come out whenever ACX gets their act together. I should have my beta comments back for Tree of Liberty this weekend, and I'll get that book put together and get it put out as well next week sometime. So yeah, it's going to be a busy week. I intend to have the secret project done by the end of the month.
Oh, wow. You have loftier goals than I do.
I am. I'm trying to kick out a book every month.
We'll see how your sanity handles that.
Sanity is entirely overrated, my young friend.
You know, you just look like a Sith Lord when you said that with the beard and everything. All you need is like a robe, a cowl or something. I don't like Star Wars. Why the hell am I talking about this?
If we were just doing audio, I could say that is exactly how I'm dressed, but I can't do that anymore.
Instead, you're flicking me the middle paw with the middle claw with fluff you, buddy.
That's right. Fluff you.
So basically, I need to, when next time you wear that shirt, I need to wear one that says "Get Fluffed."
That's right. You do need to do. You need to do exactly.
It's got just a cat paw with like this.
Fluff off.
All right, somebody get on one of the t-shirt sites and make that for me. Just go do it. Get fluffed with a big cat paw. Go ahead, it'll be good.
They could also, instead of get shorty, they could be get fluffy.
Get fluffy. I wouldn't be surprised if that one's not already out there. Be very surprised if that one's not already out there. I mean, come on.
But other than that, as soon as I wrap up the secret project, I dive back into the Empire of Bones universe and start writing Battle for Terra. And I have evil plans in mind for that book.
Yeah, we've discussed some of them offline.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Oh, you go, girl.
It'll be fine.
Everything will be fine. I wouldn't pull a Paul Cooley. I'd never do that.
Hey, somebody said I pulled a Paul Cooley in Tree of Liberty.
Oh, well, based on what I know about that, yeah, you kind of did.
I kind of did. I closed off a few plot lines, one might say.
My favorite way to close off plot lines.
Most epic Viking funeral ever.
Did you like this character? Oh, too bad.
I'm pretty sure that most people didn't like the characters involved all that much. That won't even miss them.
Uh-huh. There is this level where you really do have to think about what characters you can kill. And I was actually thinking about that while I was listening to Earthcore, Scott Sliger's rewritten version of Earthcore, which,
as opposed to the original where he pretty much saw everybody as expendable.
To his credit, when he originally wrote it, I think that's actually the way it should have ended. I really do. I'm not sure how he's going to make this work, but I will say this. If you listen to the original Earthcore podcast way back in the day, and it hasn't been available for a long time, go get the audiobook narrated by Ray Porter. It is absolutely amazing. If I ever have enough cash to hire that guy, I will do it in a heartbeat. Because his narration style and everything else fits so perfectly with a thriller, sci-fi thriller. And if you've got good dialogue, he knows how to use it. It's wonderful. So I highly suggest y'all go check that out and do Scott a solid by giving him some revenue. And if not, you should go check out the ebook anyway, because the book is fantastic regardless. It's very well done. I was very impressed. It was like, holy crap, I haven't listened to this book in 9 years or whatever it was. And it was like, even though I generally knew the general story, there's so much new stuff I noticed this time around. And I'm wondering if that's because he went back and added so much more to it. But it's impressive. I highly recommend it, and you should go check it out.
There you go. Can't get a higher recommendation than that.
Now, about the characters.
You're not even going to miss them. Trust me.
There is a level of angst when you have to decide what character to let go of. There is that mess that you have to face.
In a way, what I did is I looked at where the series was going to go from there, and I said, which plot lines do I want to continue forward? Which character arcs have a place going forward, and which ones would be more easily ended here? Because it was getting a little messy. So I made it messier.
Is that what we're calling?
That's what we're calling it.
That's what we're calling it. Some stories require people to sacrifice themselves. They require, in order for the series to move forward, or the story to move forward in general, require a ritual sacrifice of sorts.
I believe that my actions could be called a ritual sacrifice. Certainly.
But I mean, there were characters in the Black where I hated doing what I did. There were characters in Closet Treats where I actually felt bad for what I did. But at the same time, it's what the story needed. Somebody
said that you were really had it in bad for Red so bad that you killed him twice.
Yeah, I think that mistake is still there.
Note to self: go take out one death.
The sad part is that most people glossed right by it. Very few people have caught that or said anything about it. I thought we had dealt with that in the draft before we sent it, but apparently we missed a sentence. Whoops. So yeah, I think maybe I did kill Red twice, but oops.
He really needed to die.
Hey, you know what? It's an oil rig. There could be 10 people there named Red.
That's our story, and we're sticking to it.
That's right. Yeah. Just like I'm sure there might be have been one named Bubba. I didn't put Bubba in there, but there's probably a Bubba.
Well, it's good that you talked about Ray Porter and his narration, because that actually ties in pretty well with our subject du jour.
Our subject du jour?
Yes.
We're talking to Ray Porter?
Not quite.
Ooh, who are we talking with?
So right now, we would like to go ahead and welcome Veronica Giguere and the amazing John Mierau to the show. How are you guys doing?
Awesome. How are you guys doing?
Amazing. Now that you're here, because you're a lot better than Paul.
That goes without saying, dude. This show is almost always a sausage fest, so seeing a beautiful lady on here, that's that elevates the quality of the show immediately.
Did you miss the part about this being family show?
What did I say?
Sausage fest? Really? It took you less than 5 seconds to go there?
Out there, if they can't put that,
it's called Sausage Party. It's
same diff. Sausage Festival, Sausage Party. I don't. Terry's just picking.
Never mind, Paul.
You need to get your co-host the internet equivalent of one of those little car fresheners, but for censorship.
They make those? Send me a link for that, because that would be awesome.
I wouldn't be able to write. What are you talking about?
Might be a refreshing. No, we wouldn't.
Well, guys. We've brought you on to talk today about the care and feeding of audio narrators. I realize that you may not realize we're supposed to feed you, but really we are. There should be cookies involved, I think.
This is great. We're getting cookies.
I don't see any.
No, damn it, I failed. I'm so sorry.
Oh, don't worry. You can just email an emoji cookie later or something.
Wait a minute. This is on the computer, so there's probably a cookie involved somewhere in this conversation.
There has to be. Several.
Don't get too technical. The Canadian won't get it.
Aww. What I meant by that is, when I started working with Veronica, I had no idea what I was doing. And I still really have no idea what I'm doing. And she has always been kind and considerate of my ignorance. And I think that it would benefit everyone if they knew going into working with an audio narrator what they should be doing, how they should be holding up their part of the deal and working with the audio narrator. And who better to ask that than you two?
Wow.
No
I'm not
problem.
getting compliments from Terry, but thank you.
No, you're not used to getting compliments from Paul. I compliment you all the time.
Right.
Don't believe any of it.
Why don't you
believe
take a moment
Mm.
to introduce yourselves to our listeners who may not be aware of who you are? I know there's probably not many, but still, you should take a moment to go ahead and lay your credentials out on the table.
Go for it, V.
Okay. I'm Veronica Giguere. If you've heard a promo for any of Terry's books for the past, I think, year and a half, that's me. And it's a little disconcerting for me to listen to the podcast and hear myself going, like, oh, crap, not again. So I am an audiobook narrator.
Do you have like industrial equipment going through your neighborhood, John?
I'd say those aren't the lawnmowers behind my garage.
These blowers, they only come up when you're actually doing something important.
They have this thing. It's a new invention called the mute button.
Oh, man.
It's gonna be a long show. I can already
It's going to
tell.
be a long show.
See, I'm getting
So,
down, so I'm just going to sit here and smile.
please continue, V. Now that the
Right.
jackhammer has stopped.
Oh my gosh. So, like I said, my name's Veronica Giguere. I'm an audiobook narrator. Recently gone full-time audiobook narrator. That's about 6 weeks ago. Yay. 6 weeks ago? No, almost 2 months. Sweet. And I actually have narrated for all three of these fine gentlemen. I've recently narrated for Paul's Tales of Garaga, for The Things I Do for Love, which is awesome. Oh my gosh. Such a good story. And I know I narrated for John's Walk of Fire anthology. One, if maybe two, I think possibly two stories out of there. Yeah. Well, I narrated one that was J. Daniel Sawyer's. I break a rule if I don't mention him once on the podcast, right?
It's a rule.
And who else's story? I want to say it was Christopher Morse. I think that was his. Yeah. And then I talk about Space Marines all the time for Terry, as long as they're not Russian.
Yeah, there's a lesson in there.
Oh, there is.
Sure that we are going to cover.
Yeah, we'll
Oh,
get to
we
that
totally
later.
And what else? Oh, and I'm a co-author and I guess host / producer / guilty party responsible for putting out the podcast for the Secret World Chronicle podcast novel series. The 5th book is, oh my gosh, nearly finished. And that podcast has been going on for almost 10 years now.
Whoop, whoop.
Amazing.
Woohoo. Yeah.
All right,
Awesome
John,
stuff.
you're up.
Okay, I can easily follow that. Hi, I'm not Veronica Giguere. My name is John Mierau, rhymes with hero, and I podcast, I narrate professionally for audio, I dabble in small other contracts for audio, and I love to write science fiction. And my voice has appeared in some other people's podcasts as well. Servingworlds.com for my fiction, but more often than not, you'll hear me under some Norm de Plume narrating for Jake Bible or Paul Coolish, something like that, some guy, and some other podcast people of great fame, as well as a lot of audiobook studios now through audible.com. And I 50-50 writing and narrating, probably 70-30 narrating to writing, to be honest with you, but it's a little bit edging up lately because of the good folks at Patreon who support me at patreon.com/servingworlds to do both and narrate my own stuff.
Whoop, whoop.
Terry, we really need to get a bell. We really need to get a bell. I guess I'm going to have to add like a bell sound effect to this. Anyway, continue.
Hey, I think that's about it for me. I've dinged myself as much as I choose to on this podcast.
For now.
Well, Veronica, since you mentioned the Russian fiasco,
Mhm.
I think that's probably an appropriate place to start. And that is, if you have a preconceived notion of what a character should sound like, you probably should mention that.
Yep. So Has anyone actually heard the whole story about the Russian fiasco?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
Tell it because I'm sure it will be much better than if I told it.
I don't know, but we'll give it a go. So, with the Empire of Bone saga, spoilers, there's some people that aren't from our Earth. Just saying. And when they were first encountered, I tried to go with an accent that I could do to differentiate from the standard Earthworlders, your standard Terran Empire. And I went Russian because it's one of the accents that I could do and mess with inflections and tone and quote unquote attitude. And it didn't exactly work out very well. It's probably a good thing too, because I don't think I could have kept it up for 7, 8, God knows how many books.
Why didn't it work out very well?
Well, one, it didn't match what Terry wanted.
Oh, ignore that part.
It didn't fit the characters. And at the start of it, they're not my characters. They're Terry's characters. And when working with an audiobook narrator, especially if you're the author and you don't have someone as a go-between, if it's not the publisher or if it's not a studio, and it's just the author working with the narrator, the author, it helps to give an idea of what they sound like. Now, some people will say, well, she's from, Tennessee and her mother left her when she was 4 years old and she's had a very rough life. And at 17, her dog died. And at 18, the bird flew away and lived with her ex-boyfriend. And you're getting this whole backstory. I need a suggestion. John, the face says that you've seen and heard these descriptions.
Yeah, that on ACX, to use a typical example of where most people are going to find a narrator that don't have a personal connection to a goddess like V or a workhorse like myself, they describe it as Midwest or a few different areas of America or British or French, and that's about it. You get very little in the way of narrative choices for dialect. So what I like to suggest is that you ask people, what movie star do you imagine hearing in your head? Or what other character? Because if you ask for that, you can dial it in a lot faster and avoid some of these problems when you start. And this is the kind of thing you want to do after your first initial interview pitch or demo reel is sent to an author, because they're new at this too, more likely. Most authors have only done a few audiobooks, not like narrators that do 5 or 10 a year, 20 a year sometimes.
God knows I was ignorant when I started this. I've learned a little bit, enough to hopefully not humiliate myself any further. But having a primer would be an excellent thing for most authors going into this sort of thing.
Yeah, and also knowing if in this case you've got a series and a hugely expansive series. So part of it is working with and finding a narrator who is going to be able to meet that scope. If you've got someone who doesn't do character voices and who has a very different style, they may not be the right match for your series because, well, you want to be able to tell the 4th character from the 40th character and the 400th character. And if they all sound the same, dialogue without dialogue tags is going to get really confusing really fast.
Or you could do like Paul and just kill off everybody so that when you get to a new one, it doesn't matter who they sound like because the original people are dead anyway.
What's the body count in the Derelict Saga so far? Huh?
As far as I've gotten, not too many.
Uh-huh. Shut up.
Exception which proves the rule.
Wow. Okay. Thank you, Yakov Spirit off. No one has anything to say to that?
What? He asked about rule. I want to know about rule.
It's not complicated the question. You just answer the question. Can you not answer the question, please?
Wow.
What other things should we as authors know that we need to do up front other than when we've got a dialect tag style, throw that out? I'm sure there are plenty of other things that we just don't think of because we're writers.
With the prayer that you suggested, it's a great idea, but every narrator is going to have a different idea. Some will have a list of questions. Here's 10 questions I want you to think about. What time in the world is it? What world is it? Are there any famous celebrities or other voices or other characters that you'd like to try to imitate? But sometimes none of those questions, there's still going to be a blind spot. So you have to ask very clearly when you get the speech and you've done a little reading, is this the kind of, does this end the same way? Does this third book have the same flavor? Because you want to think down the road. You could nail the first book and then the second book, it's a female narrator or it's a completely different character. So you have to have those discussions up front, especially with something expansive like your world, Terry.
Believe me, if Scott Sigler can get away with his female voices, so can you.
Well, thank you, darling. You're so special.
I've been told that my female voices have improved quite a bit.
Is it important to have the appropriate gender narrator? If you've got a male character, but you work with a female narrator, is that really a problem?
No, it's not. Now there's been, John, I don't know if you saw this, in one of the ACX producer narrator groups on Facebook. There was an article circulating by a reviewer that said that they don't want to hear male narrators doing female voices, and they don't want to hear female narrators doing male voices, and it's a complete turnoff. And it's how you do it. I've listened to a handful of amazing female narrators who have, huge casts, and they manage to suggest the different characters through tone and inflection. And it's not trying to do a male voice, making it sound really goofy, but it's maybe flattening the tone or just making it sound a little sterner or crisping the ends of the words. It's the delivery. Maybe you're saying the words more deliberately. Maybe it's a change in the cadence. You can do it without being comical. Sometimes the character may lend itself to being comical, but I don't think it's a hard sell. Not hard sell. What's the word? See, I read the words people give me. I don't always put my own down. That's my excuse. It's not a deal breaker. If you have the right narrator will tell the story, and the characters and voices will naturally follow.
It's fit. I'm going to stick with Terry's point of view. This is care and feeding of a narrator from an author's point of view. I won't talk about it the other way around. And it's really about the fit. It's the kind of thing where you can see a remake of a movie where the dialogue of the characters is supposedly the same and it just doesn't work, or they make some big change that doesn't work, or they do a complete reboot. That's a great reimagining. You have to fit the chemistry that the author wants for his work. And whether or not narrators like to say this, no matter how diverse your ability is to tell a different kind of story, you've got a fingerprint as a narrator. You've got a kind of style and a kind of range, just like a singer or like a writer does with the kind of stories they tell. And that initial fit can come out not as much just in the demos you get or whether they like the last book you recorded, but in the communication you have. The chemistry you have behind the scenes is really going to inform how you record after you get the deal.
Veronica, I got to tell you that your male voice sounds a lot better than Paul's male voice.
Wow.
I've been waiting all this time to say that.
Says the guy who's got a freaking soprano, like somebody kicked him in the nuts and left it there.
You're just angry because I got it out first.
That's what she said.
Shots fired.
What was that about a family show? I mean,
okay, we can just get rid of that notion right now. This is not a family show.
We can just get rid of it. John, what?
The other V, that's what she said. That's all.
John, you talked about, dealing with this from the point of view of the feeding and caring of narrators, but talking about how narrators interact with writers really is part of the feeding and caring of narrators, because the communication between the author and the narrator is really critical, and it goes both ways. It's not a one-way street of the author saying, this is how this must be, because the narrator brings their own creativity, their own voice in and layers it on top of the authorial voice. So it's critical that there's a mesh between the two.
That's what I said. It was very important that there's a chemistry and that you ask the questions that make sense to you instead of following a specific primer or a specific list. You have to, once you've done this for a while, find the hooks that you want to find in the author so that you can give them what they want. They have an idea of their story, and again, this is just as important as deciding how to tell the narration, how to do the audio production. You have to deliver a story in a way that makes them happy, but also tells, and this is key, a new work. It's an adaptation to another format. And some people still expect a slavish following to the words, or a very careful, specific form of delivery of the words, but they can't always get that. You're never going to get a narrator, even after an exhaustive, several sample audition, or you've listened to all the books they've done before. They're still going to surprise you, good or ill.
Yep. It's true. I've listened to maybe 24 novels this year while I've been walking at the gym, listening to different audiobook narrators. And it is astonishing the breadth of voice that they all have in delivering works that may not, honestly, I'm not sure that I would have liked some of them on just the written word, but the delivery makes an entirely different sort of thing.
And vice versa. There are some people that are turned off because they've read 8 books in paper and they've made those hard and fast, concrete voice casting decisions in their head. But for the most part, you're right. It's really about what happens after the words are given to another artist to interpret.
And Veronica has come up with the perfect way to let me know that I've gone astray, because she sits there when she's recording and has this compressed air horn and goes, and so you're listening to it and suddenly you're flailing around, and that's what happens.
You really do that, or is he just messing with you?
I don't know. What do you think?
I think you really do that.
Note for shopping list later. Go to Walmart, get air horn. No. I mean, if there's something that comes up, it's did you mean this? So one of the ways I prep a book, and prepping a story, like with your story, Paul, I read through, I made sure how many voices I would need, and I made sure that the dialect choice, I could do it for all that I needed, all 20 pages. With Terry's books, because of the expansive cast, I go through and I read through once, and then every chapter I go through, actually I have it with me, and I write down every chapter and every character that's in that chapter, so I know what voices I need.
Right.
And that way I know what voices I'm going to have to go back and listen to, because somebody had an admiral and captain that showed up in book 1. It didn't show up again until book 5. I'm like, I have no idea what they sound like. I have to go back. And thankfully they weren't difficult or close to anything else I'd done. But I noticed, it's like, wait, that's a main character. And she showed up as like a throwaway character in the previous book. Hey, Terry, is this right?
I remember the lab assistant that I inadvertently used the same name as somebody that I made a main character. Oops.
Yep. But I wanted to make sure, because I wanted the character voices to match. And even if it was, a short little interaction at the end of the last book, that voice still needed to match the main character for this current book. If it didn't, well, fix it in post. Re-record.
Fix it in post. Some people will also take a sample of a specific phrase or kind of talking that a character is really great for and have those ready to go as quick little sound bites to get yourself revved up to get back in character when it's time to go back to that character's point of view narration.
Yep. I have that for Secret World because of all the characters there. So yeah, I love that.
once I finish the project that I'm currently working on, I'm going back to the Empire universe, and I'm going to do something that you are absolutely just going to bash me over the head with. And I can't tell you because it would be a huge spoiler if I did it during the show. So I'll tell you after the show what I'm going to do.
Please don't make me do a German accent.
No
Please.
German accents.
Thank you. Okay.
No German accents.
Let's
just put it this way. Let's just put it this way. In the previous novels, I've introduced that these folks can access other realities, other dimensions.
Yeah.
And they found bodies of themselves.
Yeah.
Someone is going to come through from another universe that already exists in this one.
Doppelganger.
Doppelganger.
No, I already narrate that character. Please don't.
Yes, you do. I heard it live at Balticon.
This is your back moment, V.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, that reminds. No. I was narrating stuff today and thought, what if? So, but
You see, this is the danger of narrating. When you're in a story, and this is why you read the whole book first, or at least know the synopsis for the whole series, if you can get it, is that you come up with great ideas, and you have to make choices. It's like when you stage a play, you try it 2 or 3 different times, and that's time and energy and planning that never gets into the final work. It's like when you write that scene and throw it away as the author.
Mm-hmm.
It's totally true.
For the Derelict series, I went ahead and after I narrated the first book, went back and made sound clips of what each character sounded like. So when we finally got back to Tomb, I could play it and try and get back into that character voice. That did not work exactly the way I wanted it to. And I found out that there were some scenes between 2 characters who sound similar. So I had to bring one of them up an octave a little bit and the other one keep it where it was because it couldn't go into a lower register without seriously cracking my voice into hell and gone. So but part of me wonders if the listeners to the audiobook will even freaking notice, especially if there are dialogue tags. I haven't had any complaints, but and the other problem is I think when you're narrating it yourself and you wrote it, I think you get a little too close to everything that's going on. So it's really difficult for you to tell whether or not the quality is up to snuff or, if things that you know about are actually going to be something the listener picks up on that they have a problem with.
I know that when Veronica was working through the first couple of books, I'm a book or 2 ahead at this particular moment. So when she was doing a minor character in one book, I realized that character was going to be a major character in the next one. And it sounded a little bit like Princess Kelsey. So I was able to say something, and there were only a couple of lines to fix at that point.
Yep. Yeah. And as a corollary to that is making sure that, like, if you've got buddy characters that sound similar, and it's not just sounding similar, but if you have a pairing and maybe they're not as close during the first book, but by the 3rd book they're really close, and a lot of that dialogue is going back and forth. If you've got somebody who's at a lower end of the register and then someone who's at a higher end of the register, you're jumping octaves every sentence.
You're clicking the retake button a lot more.
Yeah, that's the what?
The retake button, because if there's just one little button, we just redo all our work instantly as a narrator.
Oh, right, that button. The shiny retake button. Yes.
Wow, what a load of shit I'm hearing right now.
I'm pretty sure that Dan Sawyer has a retake button.
Dan Sawyer is that's a completely different animal. He's just an audio phenom. You should not even bring him into this.
And he's up with Casey, and he's got some amazing skills there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Man.
What other pitfalls are there that we as authors just aren't following to send you guys what you need to add and to work with us?
Well, V may have a different answer for me on this, but especially with the first time I've worked with an author, once I get to know them, I'll just do the work and send it off unless I have questions about my ability or there's something that I think the author might want input on. But for early works, I like to send them chapter by chapter by chapter in real time, which gives them time to do feedback and correct and course correct, so that we're not spending a lot of time fixing the work afterwards.
Yeah, I've done that with new authors I've worked with. Dropbox is great for that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, finish the chapter, edit, get it to, I always put out that whatever final bit I'm going to say, if I'm working with the ACX, I'm going to upload to ACX. That's what I'm going to share with the author. And so they can listen to it. They can say, well, this character's right. Or I'm not sure that's the word that I want to use. Can we fix that? Little corrections like that. Sure. No problem. But yeah, chapter by chapter. And then in the case of having that established relationship, here's the script. Where's the date?
Yeah.
And hey, 2 weeks later, here's the book. Let me know what works and what doesn't.
Ta-da!
There's actually a ta-da sound when you get to the end of it.
It's a ta-da button. It's next to the reset button.
Okay, just checking.
One of the things that I've picked up, it's hard-earned lesson that I should have known earlier, is at this point, even if I hear something that doesn't sound right, I may change a word in the text. If my authorial voice says, something's not right here, but if it doesn't change the meaning of what it is, I no longer ask for a change in the audiobook.
And I would still caution against that, because at least with Audible and with WhisperSync, as much as I grind my teeth at the whole, reduced price and royalties and that with the WhisperSync price, if someone has the book, the match needs to be really close.
If you're within 3%, I think it is. Otherwise, it can actually start to throw off your syncing.
Yeah. So even for me, even if it's a little word, the errors are so few comparatively, I would rather know, because then I can fix it. And that I'm always trying to get better, and I'm always trying to improve my craft. So I would rather have, let me know the mistakes and I'll go fix them.
Yeah,
it's my job to put out a good quality product.
Well, see, that's the difference, though. I'm not necessarily speaking about a mistake. Sometimes when you're reading something, I realize that I phrased something poorly, that I used a word that really doesn't matter in this, that I could have said something just a teeny bit different and sounded a little bit better in the written word, and I fix it in the written word and just let it go. I'm not talking big changes here. I'm just talking a word here, a word there.
You better put those changes in the text book, though. Your readers will thank you.
Yeah,
and I do.
Okay, good.
One problem I've had is when I was working on the project with Scott Sigler, some of the feedback I got from him was, you need to use more dialogue tags. And so now I've gotten into this, and now I'm writing commercial fiction. I find myself, it's just like, oh, stupid reader, here, give them dialogue tag, even though there's only two people here. And if you just go sentence by sentence and vary what's going on, you can figure out who's talking.
Deciding how much to do.
Yeah. So basically you get caught in this area where you're not sure when to include those and when to exclude them. And the biggest problem I've got with doing the audiobooks is that when do you omit and when is it okay to omit? Because those dialogue tags can sometimes really sound bad because they get so repetitive. When you're reading it, we tend to just chop that off. We tend to say, oh, okay, well, they're there, and we skip it. When it's an audio, it's a little bit more difficult. So as an author, I think it's kind of important to work with the narrator too on how much of those dialogue tags you want to excise. In a perfect world, you would finish the book would sit there and wait for the narrator to do their shtick, and then you would basically sync up the two pieces.
That's what I was going to say, Paul. That's a very important skill to learn. And I know from past experience, you always espouse the value of an author reading out loud when he's editing to catch a lot of those tags as well. But if you're working with a big house and a bigger company, they don't want you to make those changes, unfortunately.
Right.
Pendants, absolutely. But that just highlights for me the value of what we're saying with the care and feeding of the author this time, to get those get his own words, or a computer to read, in the case of, I think Terry uses Dragon, to read words back to him to make sure it sounds right.
I used to do that, but now I don't anymore.
But she got V, so she's got buttons that are shiny.
I'm doing something different now. To since you brought it up, I'll say that rather than have the program read it back to me, after I write a page full of new words, I'll cycle back and I'll reread that page of words while I'm still in the creative voice. And so I'm continually going over it as I write it. And so it's making it cleaner, I think. Hopefully that will prove true.
I guess my point is that you have to kind of make a decision as an author, and you have to think about how it's going to be read aloud and see if there's a way where you can minimize some of those dialogue tags.
It's a good idea.
And I think it takes a lot of skill, and I think it takes a lot of practice, because it's not something you can easily do, and it is easier to confuse readers, especially if you have more than two people speaking.
One of the things that I've picked up over the years of writing this, that for dialogue tags, if you can mix in actions from the characters, you can eliminate dialogue tags.
Right.
So have the character do something, have them pick up something, have them look at something, have them make an expression. You can eliminate a ton of dialogue tags, and that makes the ones that remain a lot less obtrusive.
Streamlines the text too.
Well, it can, unless then you start the danger of having every sentence paragraph with he looked at his feet, or he looked at the ceiling, or he frowned, or
I have a little list of words that I search for when I'm done, so that I can cut out noddeds, so I can cut out shook heads, some of those things that I've obviously realized that I do entirely too many times. I'm starting to build that list. The older books, I'm afraid there's a lot of head shaking going on, so I'm trying to fix that.
Well, for those of us who worked in tech, the head shaking and head nodding happened a lot with certain individuals, no matter what you said. So
it's totally in character. You're all right.
Yeah. So it's kind of, but it is, I think, one of those things to look at. Obviously, that requires reading some authors who know what they're doing and could show you, a better way to, fix that in your own writing. In a perfect world, like I said, I would, even if I wasn't the one narrating the book, I would get the text done, hand it to the narrator, and the narrator maybe would go back and make some of those adjustments and then send them back to me, and I'd figure out how to put those in the text, kind of thing, and then sync everything up. That would be in a perfect world.
Yeah. That's again something you could do when you control your distribution phase.
Right. Yes.
It is a great thing for small and indie authors to do.
Well, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I love having my own audio rights, is I don't have to fight with, Beacon Audio or whoever the freaking hell, whatever clearinghouse their publisher's going through. And I think about these things a lot, because audio is a very significant portion of my income.
And it will only grow. The last 2 years, ebook growth is 3 to 5%, and audio growth is 15 to 18%.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have to confess that my wife keeps track of the numbers when they come in, and I really have no idea what the percentage wise of the income audio is, but I know that it's nowhere in the same ballpark as what Paul does, because he quotes his numbers of sales and they dwarf mine. They're 4 times bigger than mine. So he's a monster.
We sold 550 something in May.
I wish. I mean, part of it is you have a different group of people going after print than you have going after audio.
Absolutely.
And promoting audio is, that's a whole different.
It's the Wild West.
Yeah, there's still some issues with trying to get the word out about the audiobooks. I found that people are actually buying, when they buy the ebook, buying that, add audible narration for $7.49, or they buy the ebook and then they go to their Audible account and go ahead and buy the credit so that they can, keep the two in sync. But there are people out there who will only listen. There are people out there who will only read.
Yes.
And you have to kind of split the baby, because the audio stuff you can make a killing on
Mhm.
As far as the profit margins go, depending on how you do things, for me, it's not a problem because I'm not paying, a narrator right now, and I'm doing all the production work myself. So it's just costing me time. But so I make my money back very quickly. I just don't ever get my sanity back. But there
You
is
didn't enter into this with sanity.
no, this is true. There is a level of audio pimpage you have to do. The podcast has helped me out with that, but I don't know how do you separate? I mean, Veronica, John, especially when you're working with somebody on a percentage deal or whatever it's called. What is it called?
Royalty share.
Share.
Royalty share. Thank you. When you're working on royalty share, if you're the author and if you're the narrator, or if you're not what I'm trying to say is, if you're in a royalty share program, how do you help? And how do you suggest to the writer or publisher or whatever else to help promote the audio?
I got to jump in. V may have a different answer, but
Go for it.
It's really not in the narrator's interest or really ability to promote and drive sales. There's a small amount of people that will loyally follow a narrator from book to book.
Ray Porter.
Vast majority of readers rather don't know or care to know about, is that Scott Brick? Is that Veronica Giguere? I got to buy that title.
Oh yeah, please mention my name and his in the same breath. Oh.
I hope Paul is recording this, so you can get that snippet of the names right there together. He will send that to you.
Dude, I get to meet Johnny Heller in 2 weeks. I am totally stoked.
You know, but it's really hard to do that. It's really hard to try to find a percentage. The narrator has to drive the promotion. And when I've had publishing houses say, if we give you this, how are you going to promote it? And I have to tell them, that's not something that's going to benefit you unless you are Johnny Heller, unless you are Scott Brick. Don't ask me to promote your work because you're not doing yourself any favors. And how am I going to break down the per finished hour rate for my time doing social media promotion if I'm even equipped and capable of knowing how? That's something an artist, and trust me, the reader is better off controlling the promotion, because especially an independent artist wants to control a mailing list, wants to control the messaging, and wants to have the relationship with their fans. Don't offload it. It makes great sense to have a great voice, do your narrating and trailer for Empire. That's great. But I think Veronica would probably say it's in Terry's better interest to be doing this show and other events to create that relationship with readers than to offload that to a narrator.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, when you're in a royalty share, your neck is on the line too with the sales.
Yeah, we have to take a leap of faith and pick them. We really can't. I think that's it. Just leap of faith, pick whose words you trust.
Okay.
I can't say that I've heard this from anybody that's actually involved, but just the word on the street anyway is that royalty shares are becoming rarer as things go along. I don't know if that's true or not, but I've heard it said.
It's not that it's becoming. I don't think that it's becoming rarer. It's that a lot of audiobook narrators find it hard to justify going into royalty share because of the time it can take to recoup what they would earn on a per finished hour. For a single standalone title, you put that out, I want to do royalty share. Yeah, unless you have a massive following and you can demonstrate that your print sales have been good, and maybe you have other books, other standalones, and you have that following, then maybe your narrator will take a chance on that. A series, well, it's that long tail. As that series grows and you're able to keep, saying, well, I'm doing book 5, book 6, book 7. Oh, so there's more. So if I get, I get the one credit and I get another book, I can keep listening to the same story. I can invest in that. Yeah. So it's definitely harder to find a narrator, an established narrator who will do royalty share for a standalone. For series, possibly, but more and more narrators are looking beyond and saying, how am I going to recoup the time and effort?
Narrators that will work for $50 per finished hour to cut their teeth, to prove their skills. But as in anything, if you're an artist or you're doing any job in a creative spirit, you start off taking a small bite of the pie to prove you deserve. But you can't keep taking that small bite of your pie and feeding your children. I've only ever taken royalty splits with 3 authors, one of which I'll mention, which is Jake Bible, because he is very patiently waiting for me to get back to it. And I keep having to push it off to feed my family. And he's a very good name, and he's worthy of doing it. Jake, thanks for the patience, man. I'm getting to it. But it's a reality.
So that said, how do you pick? Do you sometimes show up for an audition for something and you actually get the text and you're like, there's no way in hell I want to read this, much less be a part of it? Does that happen?
If we're offered work or if they ask us to audition, yeah, sometimes. And that's why you have a stated rate on your website and a friend rate or a really good work rate that you know you can knock it off faster. If there's lots of German accents, it's going to take V twice as long. She has to factor that in.
It's like a surcharge, the German accent surcharge.
I'm telling you, 10 years, I might have it done by the end of the podcast.
Oh.
No, jeez.
Und my main character is Helga.
Well, how often have you been asked to audition for something or gone into audition for something and realized that the writing is so poor that it's not something you want to get near?
One of my pseudonyms has written several Christian fiction novels I don't ever want to tell you the title of, or narrated them, rather. There's some bad work that pays well, and there's some bad work that you say, no, thank you.
Wow.
I have had people contact me, and often it's I heard you on this podcast, or I heard you narrate, and I want to go in, and I've got this new science fiction book, and it's about this, this, and this. And I'll look at it, and I am not a nice person.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not. I'm more judgmental than God knows. I roll a 20 for tact every time. So, but they're what?
Nothing?
Totally true.
Nothing. I was thinking more like critical fail, but still.
No, that's you. That's a critical fail for tact.
Anyway. And usually I go, I can't do this. Or there's no way this is going to sell enough to recoup royalty share.
Mm.
Oftentimes I will I'll hear well, you do royalty share for this person. Why can't you do it for me? And
you tell them.
It's well, this person is established. They have very good sales. They market well. They have a 3, 4, 5-year plan on how to keep this series alive and moving and revamp and keep it fresh. And this is your first novel. Mm. And I'm flattered, but
it's a big risk you're asking.
Yeah. And the thing is, more and more authors who want to be serious about writing as a profession, they need to understand that audio is not a luxury anymore. Mm-hmm. Audio is a necessity. You are missing a really dedicated audience, a captive audience. People are going to commute. People are going to work out. People are going to, put in headphones and, clean the house, mow the lawn, walk the dog. You're missing out on all of that time when someone could be enjoying your work. And if you want to capitalize on that, you need to make that investment. Yeah. And the dirty truth is that if you're going to invest in that per book, you need to plan. If you've got a 10, 12-hour book, so 70, 80,000 words, you need to plan on setting aside $1,200 to $1,500 minimum to get that book into audio.
By a decent, talented narrator.
Yes. By someone who is, this is their profession, just like your profession as a writer, their profession as a narrator. You're looking at budgeting that per book. If it's your first book, if you have a series, maybe later on royalty share, possibly. Maybe it's a hybrid deal where you're paying them per finished hour so they can compensate for having someone else do the production. That's a thing. But If you're going into this fresh and you know, I'm laying out my business plan, you need to set aside 12 to 1500 for that 80,000 word book, because that's your investment on reaching a whole new audience.
And it sounds very harsh, or it might even sound mercenary. These numbers, they sound extravagant, and you may be worried that your business plan doesn't have any hard numbers for how this book is going to sell. But a business plan you have to have some targets, some goals, some expectations, and you have to have some outlay. If you're serious about furnishing a career that people are going to be able to pay attention and rely on working you with, same as you'd pay a designer for a cover, you need that audio book, that audio right in your back pocket.
And the thing is, one of the things going and budgeting that out, that per finished hour, that means that, say you do that with Audible and with ACX, you are going to get 40% of that sale. Amazon's going to keep the other 60, you're going to get 40.
That's if you go exclusive.
That's if you go exclusive.
Yeah.
If you invest that $1,500, even if everything you sell is through WhisperSync, every single sale, out of that, $740 something, you're getting $3 out of it. After that 450th audiobook sale, you have paid for your narrator.
And the profits are all yours and Amazon's.
Yep. You're not sharing it with anybody. So for that standalone, for that next great American novel, if you think that you're going to sell that many copies, and do you really want to share?
For the rest of the contract.
Yeah. It's a 7-year for for exclusive. 7 years.
Yes.
Yes, 7 years.
So are you going to make that 450 in 7 years? I sure as hell hope so. If you are, why are you sharing it with me? That's just that's standard business stuff.
And if you can't make that math work in your head, don't ask the narrator to do it.
Engineering degree, I can do it. But yeah.
I know that I can't speak for Paul, but I know that just offhand, I have four novels currently selling in Audible right now, and I had one erotic short story that I got out under a different name, and between all of those, I've had 1,400 sales, maybe 1,500, something like that, number-wise. I still, as an author, have no idea how that translates to what kind of read-through rate or what kind of profit rate. It's because it depends on how they got the book and all of that. But it's still a necessary part, just like making a print version is a necessary part of the professional image of your book. Mm-hmm. You need to have that. And the more that you have it out there, these type of things snowball. People that I know this number for the electronic books. Every person that buys my first book pays, now it's at $3.99. So I've got that money, the 70% of that for the first book. But I went ahead and did the percentages going from book 1 to book 2 to book 3, seeing how many people carried through over the lifetime of the book. Basically, for every sale of book 1, counting the number of percentage-wise that go all the way through, that one sale equals to about $13, $14 grand total right now in read-through of people that continue on and don't drop off. And it's going to prove true for audio as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that long tail that everybody talks about so often, it is incredibly important. It's changed, like it's put Walmart and any company that has a really efficient distribution chain to shame with what Amazon can do with repetitive, incremental pennies on the dollar transactions. And that works in the long run if you invest in the short run in your narration, in your book cover, and in your editing. I want to say this again as a narrator, and I'm guilty of this as an author sometimes. There's been books that I've said, oh, I'll chintz on the editing, or publishing companies I've worked with that maybe didn't do the best editing pass. And you hear from your readers afterwards if there's bad, and it affects you. And that long tail exists too. You have to pay down bad karma. So better not pay for it all in the first place.
The bit about covers, a good cover, narrators, when they are looking at titles, narrators look at covers. And And I can say I've gotten some mad fine compliments on the Empire of Bones covers. So Donna's amazing.
She is amazing.
And I had someone go,
Lucky
wow.
man.
I had someone go, those professional covers are fantastic. I'm like, yes, they are.
Professional is as professional does. I say they rock.
It was fantastic. But that's something that narrators do consider. So investing in a strong, solid cover will help you find a good narrator.
Editing, those are all important things to feed in along with the audio, to feed in along with the print. If you can't lay out a print book, you really should find somebody that can lay out one that looks good for you, or buy vellum.
That's a whole nother episode, Terry. Don't get us started on that. It's a whole nother episode.
That's another line in the Dead Robots drinking game. How often has... Never mind.
So let's see. I published the Black, the audiobook on June 4th, 2015. It has sold 2,332 copies in that time.
Baby Jesus.
Oh. And I want his sales numbers so bad.
Now it paid for itself,
Me too.
And far as my time editing it and everything else that I did, I could have hired somebody else to do it. It probably would have cost me, I don't know, $2,000 for that book, the way I wanted it done. But I would have absolutely clobbered that number for what it, the royalties I made back so fast, it would not have been funny.
It's like a board can make anybody buy chicken or bathing suits, and the same thing with a good cover.
Yeah.
Just not a chicken in a bathing suit.
But
David Wood, your next assignment is
even though this book has been out for more than 2 years, it is still selling 50 to 60 copies a month. So that when you're talking about the long tail, that's what we're talking about. Because it just keeps going and rolling, and every month you're just kind of adding all that to it. So one of the reasons why I don't do royalty share or even try and attempt it is because there are rights problems. Because I want to be able to use the audio from my podcast. I want to be able to put it up to YouTube. I want to be able to, do whatever I want to do with it. And it would make it very, very difficult for me to get, in full conscience anyway, a narrator to agree to that. Because then, okay, well, should I be sharing the advertising revenue I'm getting from YouTube or whomever else or however else I do this? It gets into this really squirrely area, and it makes it kind of difficult to figure out.
This is something else we should address. This is something else we should address. I'm stepping on you to agree and to take it one step farther. I am not the greatest example of this, but I'm still making hundreds of dollars a month on Patreon for my creators, and sometimes dozens of dollars or $100 a month from like PayPal.me from people who listen to my podcast.
Right.
There is an amazing secondary income to be had from people who find your work in audio and find your podcast. So authors, invest in a good narrator if you choose not to do it yourself. And this is another excellent reason to own your rights, because you could create an abridged version of once a month, buy it right now, get it all free, or you listen for the next year version. Everything you want can be created when you own the rights. So creator about what works for you, and maybe they've got some ideas to help.
Yeah, there's one of the bonuses you get when you work with a narrator like me or like John, who has that background in the podosphere, is that we'll think, hey, how do you monetize this to get it on your podcast? So when someone says, oh, I got this great novel, but I'm not sure if I can afford you. My first thing is, do you have a Patreon? Would your listeners want your audiobook serialized? Do they know who I am? Would they like to hear me read it? And that might be a little vain, but if I can say, well, if you tell them I'm going to narrate it and we do a test chapter and you see how that goes, how much would they pay you to hear me?
There you go.
And is that enough to match the rate that I have?
We're not just narrators. We're your literary financial planners.
Oh dear
Well,
God,
funny
no.
mention that because I used money from my Patreon to pay Veronica to I just did this to read the things I do for love, which is a Patreon exclusive. They paid for it essentially, so they get it.
Mhm.
And that's probably going to remain exclusive for quite some time. And the other Garaga stories that are still in the trunk, I will probably have somebody else narrate as well. And the money to pay for that is going to partly come from Patreon.
I'm downs with that, by the way. I'm downs with that.
Wow. I know where this is going. Wow. What is going on here? I got people just kind of like, I like this character. I like this character. I know Veronica wants to see another Colette story.
Oh, dude. Heck yes. Heck yes.
So
it-
if
sorry.
you are on ACX and you're exclusive, how different would something have to be a different version?
Talking about
You could actually
podcasting and Patreon? Talking about podcasting and Patreon versions and how they interfere with your ACX rights?
I'm saying that if you are selling the book through ACX and you are going exclusive, there are limitations on you obviously using that same version anywhere else other than their platform. So I'm trying to figure out whether or not it's even possible to do the two simultaneously.
Sigler was kind enough to be the canary in the coal mine for this one. It's been duplicated, and there's some of these discussions on these famous forums that V and I like to hang out with.
Mhm.
By changing materially the length, the size, and making it a serialized version alone, you can use the same recording versions legally and fairly in your podcast or in a Patreon. You cannot serialize that for another market that competes with Audible, and that's where they'll draw the line. But if you're independently doing it, and you're not in another distribution chain, you are likely, and I am not a lawyer, but in practice, many have gone unmolested by Audible for doing so.
And I think Audible, to a certain degree, is letting that slide because they realize that those people weren't going to listen or buy the book anyway, and they probably will.
It's a different audience for Patreon and for podcasts.
Yes, very much so. And I have people who come to the podcast and listen to the first 2 or 3 episodes of the book, and they're like, I have to wait 30 more fucking weeks to hear this. I'm going to go buy the book. So, I mean, it's actually, and see where I don't know where the line is drawn is where you serialize something on YouTube.
Is anyone else hearing Paul roboting? No, is it just me? I'm hearing myself roboting. So, there we go.
So it might have been me.
I blame everyone. Am I still roboting?
No.
Okay.
Yes.
No. Yes. What?
I think it's me.
We got to get Terry some Paul canceling headphones.
You said materially different length. What does that mean?
And again, I'm not a lawyer, but I have seen this in at least 6 different examples. Scott Sigler himself actually has done about 6 different examples. If you have a book that you're selling and it's 8 hours long, and you chop it to 30 pieces and you put it in your podcast, there's a lot of court cases about taking a video and showing it in pieces in a different format on YouTube or on late night TV, or serialized and using it as reruns in TVs. But throw out all that court law. It's just, in my opinion, again, I'm not a lawyer, Audible isn't going to chase you for making money out of from a pie that they can't get a piece of anyway.
Right. So another way to look at it, Terry, is like every time you podcast, at least with those of us who've been doing it for a long time, you're going to have an intro to every episode. You're going to have an outro to every episode. That's going to add, 30 seconds to 3 minutes to every episode.
So you're not actually talking the text being any different between the two. You're talking about adding things to that and not having to cut chunks of your work out or write new things for it.
Right. Yeah.
Not abridging it at all, but actually adding those intros, outros, in some cases adding or subtracting music, but mostly just making it a very small fractional chunk. That's not a market that Audible offers yet. If they ever do, then maybe they'll bring the hammer down.
So I took the Derelict Saga non-exclusive. And the reason is because I wanted to sell the Audible version that did not have any sound effects or any music with it, and then make the podcast have the music and sound effects, and then sell that audiobook directly from my site. So the people who want to basically pay for what they're getting on the podcast can buy it directly from me instead of going to Audible. This is an experiment. So far, I've lost my ass on income compared to the black, but I think in the long run, it might actually be better for me once the series concludes. We'll see. It's all an experiment at this point, but I wanted to do that just to try it, because if I didn't try it, I'd never know. So we have to investigate these other distribution chains. The only way to do that is to have a book that's going to sell in order to tell you what's up.
I've been trying to find ways to I have 3 books that I have not personally put on Audible of my own that is already recorded for podcast because of packaging time. But I've found that I just haven't had the window where I could make enough to make that transfer, instead of continuing to make new work and continue to get a very healthy fraction of what one narrated book would give me in my podcast feed on Patreon.
Well, let me take this, since you brought the idea up, let me take this question one step further, and something that Paul had mentioned. If someone like I that went ahead and did that does royalty share with Veronica, did that and got Patreon income, I would personally feel obligated to share said Patreon income with the other person that's in royalty share with that. That's the right thing to do.
Yeah,
How does that sort of thing even work?
Reach out and you make that arrangement one-on-one, because there is, as I said, no pre-existing law and no problems, but that other person does have a financial stake in that copyright work. Yeah. It is a separate work from
copyright stuff too, because this was you entered into this publishing agreement as a performance. You don't own that performance; that they own that performance of it.
That's what I mean. You 3 people own it. You own 20%. She owns 20%, and Amazonosaurus owns 60%. But yes, the correct thing to do is the 60% comes from their distribution chain. You and V could very easily end up in a small claims court if you decided to go with her permission and contract for it.
Yeah.
Not that you two would, and please don't start fighting and bring up. Well, again, this is why I prefer to pay the whole Megillah up front and just get it off the, get it completely off the table and move on from there. If I'm feeling charitable, I might give them a bonus at some point in the future if the audiobook sells very well. Mm-hmm. But I would rather save up the money and be able to pull the trigger on it and do whatever I want to do without worrying about anybody getting butthurt or coming back at me at some point because I made all this money and I'm not sharing it with them. Mm-hmm. But that was the agreement up front. So yes, I think you have to be very clear about what your intentions are when you're talking to a narrator, if you're going to try and do royalty share with them.
And it's just the right thing to do.
Yeah, it's just
I had one title that I narrated as part of a Kickstarter. And it was narrated as part of a Kickstarter. I got paid for it. And then the author and producer decided to go put it up through ACX. And they, of course, did the right thing. And no, they did. And so every month, the producer, bless his heart, he goes and he gets the royalties for that title, and it gets divvied up, and he goes and pops it into my PayPal account. Nice. I get hey, here are the sales for, April. Here are the sales for May. And it may not be the best selling title. It's a story I loved doing. I know it was probably one of the better ones that I narrated. But there's that conscientiousness. It'll make me want to work with that producer and that author again because of that interaction. They didn't have to do it. I might not have known, but they did, and I appreciate it. Something else that one of the other series authors I work with, as her audiobook sales start to dwindle on her earlier books, she's been putting out what's the phrase? Kind of like bulk editions, not omnibus, because you'd have everything there. But she's got 9 books in her series. So she's taking the first 3 and she's going to put out those 3 as a separate audio title so that when you use one credit, say with your Audible subscription, you can get all 3 books at once. Hopefully that will drive sales of the later books because people listen to the first 3 and then get, oh, I want to listen to the 4th one, and they'll go on. Because you always want to be producing revenue off that.
Yes.
How convenient, since I'm bringing out a book 1 through 3 omnibus edition in a month and a half.
Yes, we should talk.
We should talk.
Because I'm going to be putting out at the end of this month, I'm going to be working with JF Penn to get her Arcane series, 1 through 3, and I think 4 through 6. We're going to try and get those out.
This is a great example of where your book rights really matter and your covers really matter. I've done a few box sets. One for somebody who put a brand new cover on it and put out 4 books in a new production, a box bundle omnibus. And what's fascinating is the ratings, the reviews are completely different because they hit the market at a different time with a different cover and attracted an entirely different audience. And it's like, I get a lot more money from this than this. What? Or rather, I was paid twice. But the sales that they're getting is considerably higher on the repackaging, which is a case in point for making that effort on the cover and considering marketing and timing and putting all your books out in another format later on.
Yeah, I think these are all very important things. I think the
Sounds
three
like
of us
you need
have
a business plan.
Yeah, the 3 of us have been doing it long enough where we know pretty well what we need to do to make it happen with our own works, with other folks' works. We know the rules. The question is, can you always follow the rules that you set for yourself? And it's frequently impossible to follow all the rules that you're trying to, just because of money and time and all the other garbage that goes along with it.
Something totally unrelated to that I just thought of is one of the things that as an author we need to keep in mind working with narrators is that if you publish frequently, you may outpace your narrator. You may run away from your narrator. And I'm sorry, Veronica, but I've redone my schedule for the beginning part of next year, and I'm focusing on the Empire stuff. So every other book is going to be an Empire book. I'm very sorry about that.
Bring it on. Seriously, my goal is to finish a book every 2.5 weeks.
Wow. My goal is to finish one every month. So
we'll catch up and we can coordinate releases. It'll be fantastic.
We'll see how that works out. But I'm being serious.
Yeah, so am I.
Every 2 or 3 books that I bring out, I've decided to focus on my core series. So it's going to be an Empire series book.
Well, I mean, I'm working on Reconnaissance in Force. I totally expect to have that all done by the end of July. And that's with all of crazy summer schedules.
Summer is a nice time to have kids and also narrate.
Yes. I shudder to think what horrible Disney movie is being watched right now.
You should have your kids narrate kids' books. Bring them right into the family business.
Oh, I am so not coaching. Hell no. Hell no. I already have to have, one who I go, hey, what are you reading on your phone? Derelict. Okay. Have you finished it? No. And then he came into my office, 2 days ago? Hey, Mom, where's that first book you narrated? What? The first book, the superhero one. The Secret World Chronicle one? Yeah, where's that first book? I realized I don't have a copy of it.
Holy crap.
I don't have author. I was not an author on it.
Oh, that's right.
I only narrated it. So I have an e-copy someplace. The other ones, I got more than I know what to do with. But the one, no. So he's like, yeah, can I read that? The problem is then he'll throw it back on my face. Well, I read your book. He tried that once. I listened to that short story you did. And it's okay.
I get that from myself all the time. Can you read to us tonight?
Mine never ask that. They do not want to hear me.
2 of them don't, but one of them can't get enough still.
Aw.
Veronica, how old are your kids?
Uh,
Are they mid-teen kind of deal or younger?
my oldest is 14. He's in 10th grade. My younger son is 11, and my daughter is 8 going on 21.
You're letting a 14-year-old read The Black? How horrible!
Hey, my mother
Don't you
told me as
dare!
long as I could pick it up and read it, that was okay. I only got dirty looks when I brought home a Joanna Lindsay novel. And my dad went, "You're reading that trash?" I was like, "I went through all the Tom Clancy that you had, and I already read all the President's Men. What do you want me to do?"
Oh, I love it.
Here's my question, and this is just for my personal knowledge, because
Yeah, my husband reads it too, so I'm totally surrounded.
what do you do when your child walks in on you and you're reading something like The Things I Do for Love or Daemons of Goraga?
They have to get through 2 doors to get to me.
Yeah.
And my kid radar is pretty good. So even if I'm like prepping and I'm on my laptop and I'm out in a public area, I will hear someone creep up and I will alt tab out of that.
This is funny. I had an erotic work that was narrated by someone, and they recorded it while living it at home. They went into a closet and recorded it. And I've got a blooper reel of things, and one of the things was reading words and then going, silence. I think my mother's standing right outside the door. I think she heard me.
Oh my goodness.
I'm just going to sit here and talk dirty to myself.
Well, hey, considering all of the stuff that I've read for Nobilis,
yeah,
yeah, we're good.
And that was enough. I have no idea what they heard or if they're traumatized for life. I just try to remind myself the first time I saw that bad movie that everybody saw that traumatized them for life when they were kids. So it's not just our generation that happens to.
Yep.
Well, we need to start bringing this to a close. So if you guys have any more advice for authors that want to give you everything you need to do, the best you can do, what would that be? What have we not covered?
Oh, I think one of the things is to trust us. I know it's hard to, give your baby to someone else and hope that they're going to do it justice. But what I would say is that when you give that book and you give that little bit of direction to your narrator, you're hiring them, you're working with them, and they want to make sure that that work best represents their ability as well as the story that you're telling. So you don't need to micromanage. We'll ask if there's something going wrong, but you're like, well, the stress should really be on this syllable, not this one. We're good. We're generally okay.
We can take feedback. We can take things that are dear to your heart in the work that you love, and we will make sure we honor it. But there are going to be other things that if you let us get through, you're going to see that we've found something in the work that you didn't know was there or you didn't highlight, and you really like the way we flavored it or colored it or shone a light on it, because it's a shared thing. And we're going to be able to surprise and delight you as much as we vex you. And that's all part of the process. Just keep talking to us, because communication is key.
Yeah, we don't get into this because we hate books. We get into this because we love reading stories and we love telling stories, and we learn as much narrating and reading as we do, just doing research ourselves.
What she said.
Oh, you got anything?
No, I think they pretty much covered it all.
All right. Well, thank you both for coming on. Why don't you take a moment to go ahead and let everybody know where they can find you and plead for your assistance and see whether they are worthy.
V?
Okay, well, I'm Veronica Giguere. You can find me at voicesbyveronica.com. That's voicesbyveronica.com. You can find me on Facebook. Voices by Veronica has its own page. You can listen to me for God knows how many days straight at the Secret World Chronicle podcast novel series. If you like science fiction, superheroes, and space Nazis, I got something for you. You can find it at secretworldchronicle.com. The series is written by Mercedes Lackey, Dennis Lee, Cody Martin, and me. I am out on ACX, so if you're interested in working with me, please email me. It's voicesbyveronica.com. You can go there, contact me, hit me up on Facebook. And I'm currently narrating The Empire of Bones Saga, written by Terry Mixon, and The Things I Do for Love by Polly Cooley. So support them. Get a copy.
Nice.
John?
I am John at servingworlds.com, Twitter at servingworlds, facebook.com/servingworlds, and patreon.com/servingworlds. I like to serve worlds that I write and that other people write, and I have a hell of a lot of fun doing both. So hit me up. Let's talk.
So when you serve worlds, do you wear a maitre d' uniform and like bring them out on a platter?
I serve them up nice, spicy, hot with a side mojito for people that want a little something extra in their event. No, I love what I do, and it's a lot of fun.
And you're good at it.
It's pretty scary. Secret worlds, serving worlds, you know.
Yeah, there's some kind of strange thing going on here. I think there's a conspiracy we're not part of, Terry. I'm kind of concerned now.
I say nothing.
Folks, if you have a question for us, go ahead and send us an email at show@deadrobotsociety.com. You can find us on Twitter at Paul_E_Cooley, because he's the only one that's young enough to actually be on Twitter. So find us at the Listeners of the Dead Robot Society Facebook page. We would not be in good shape if we didn't mention the good folks at podhoster.com. And of course, Paul already has the list of our $10 patrons up, ready to read.
We want to thank our wonderful folks, our wonderful $10 patrons. John Kilgallen. I'm probably slaughtering the name. My apologies. Christopher Winder, Isabel Kushi, Andre Conde Moraes. I'm still probably slaughtering that. Robert Slade, DJ Chamberlain. I love this one. Jonathan Zarusin, J.R. Handley. Really?
What?
And
Caleb, the French tickler James, and he did it. He did do it. And of course, Sue Bayman. Yes, he apparently is going to troll me by changing his freaking name every week.
Awesome. I thought he was going to go with Hung Low.
Wait for next week. It'll be Hung Low, Sweet Chariot.
I'm just going to start saying not hung. Anyway, yeah, thank you very much, folks. If you want to become a Patreon supporter and help us pay our bills, keep the podcast going, and hopefully at some point hire somebody to actually handle our audio production and video editing so I don't have to do it, you can find us at patreon.com/DRS podcast, whereas for as little as $1 a month, you get access to exclusive content, live shows, and unedited podcasts if you really want to torture yourself.
And our $5 and more patrons will be getting this particular episode a week before everyone else.
Yes.
Suckers.
John, Veronica, thanks for coming on and talking with us. I feel like I know just a little bit more about this now.
And you haven't run screaming. That's a good sign.
That comes later.
Terry, come on in. The water's fine.
Is this a suit required sort of thing?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Oh, man.
On that note, say goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.